Did you know Gandalf always feared Sauron? He originally didn't want to go to Middle-earth, yet he assumed his mission and was the only one that stayed true until the end. With his iconic staff, flowing robes, and wise demeanor, Gandalf has captured the hearts and imaginations of fans around the world. But who is Gandalf really? How much did he actually do to protect Middle-earth? Today on Fantasy Archive, we will follow Gandalf's journey, exploring his travels and adventures, and back and forths up until the Battle of the Five Armies. So sit back, grab your favorite drink, and let's see what Gandalf was up to when we weren't watching. His male name was Olorin, and he was known by the elves as Mithrandir, and as Thurkin by the dwarves. He was created by Ilúvatar approximately 7,000 years before the War of the Ring. He lived in Valinor, and served the Valar Manwë. Manwë learned that Morgoth's successor Sauron had survived the War of Wrath. In response, the Valar created the Order of the Wizards, or the Istari, made of 5, Saruman, Gandalf, Radagast, and the 2 blue wizards whose identities and whereabouts are unknown. The Order of the Wizards' mission was simple: to support and encourage the free peoples of Middle-earth threatened by Sauron, but only in guidance and help, never taking absolute leadership from any of them. Sometime in the year 1000 of the Third Age, Olorin, of whom the Quenti Silmarillion doesn't speak much of, took a ship towards the Grey Havens to be met by 2 other wizards of the Order, Saruman the White and Radagast the Brown. After telling them why he was there, he travelled to Mithland, where he also met Glorfindel and Círdan, the shipwright, who gave him one of the elven rings of power, the Ring of Fire, also called Narya, which gave the power to inspire, resistance to the wariness of time, and the ability to hide from remote observation, with the exception of the wielder of the One Ring. Although Saruman and Radagast had their own homes in Isengard and the Greenwood Forest, Gandalf was someone who preferred to be always on the move, to help all whom needed guidance against the dark forces at bay somewhere on Middle-earth. He did, however, have a preference for the western regions. Here is where he was known by the elves as Mithrandir the Grey Pilgrim, as Thurkin by the dwarves, amongst other names. That being said, the Maiar known once as Olorin chose to be recognized by Gandalf, which meant Wand Elf. In 1100 of the Third Age, a growing darkness known as the Necromancer had transformed the once beautiful Greenwood Forest and home of the Wood Elves into Mirkwood. While some suspected that the darkness emanating from Dol Guldur came from one of the Nazgûl, Gandalf had the feeling that the Necromancer was not one of the 9, but Sauron himself. Through the years, the spirit of the Necromancer grew more powerful, and the orcs multiplied, starting to reach the numbers that Morgoth had used in the War of Wrath. Of these foul creatures, their commander was none other than the Witch King of the Nazgûl, who began his offense attacking the northern region of Angmar to the kingdom of Arnor. Seeing all of this unfold, Gandalf goes to Dol Guldur on 2063 of the Third Age and confronts the Necromancer face to face, who, when he sees how powerful Gandalf is, runs away as he did when his master Morgoth was slain an age ago. Gandalf was not able to identify him. After his confrontation in Dol Guldur, Gandalf discovers the Shire, a place that he loves from day one primarily because of the kindness of its inhabitants, the Hobbits. He integrated with their culture and enjoyed the best tobacco they had and befriended the old Took. He helps his new friends during the period that was known as the Long Winter. 5 months of cold and snowstorms that the Hobbits would have never survived without the Grey Wizard. Throughout those 5 months, Gandalf truly learned how courageous and gritty the Hobbits can be, something that will come in handy both in the Desolation of Smaug and the War of the Ring later on. While on his stay in the Shire, he learns that an old friend, the dwarven king Thrain, had disappeared in Mirkwood and sets off to investigate at once, taking into account that Thrain had one of the 7 rings of power given to the dwarves by Sauron. Gandalf begins his journey in the ancient kingdom of Khazad-dûm on Moria, the once home of the people of Durin. There, between the ruins of what once was a great kingdom, Gandalf is incapable of figuring out where Thrain is. After exiting the mines through Durin's doors, which we see in the Fellowship of the Ring, Gandalf decides to go back to Dol Guldur, where he does find Thrain, but he dies at the hand of the Necromancer, who finally reveals himself as Sauron. Gandalf goes to the White Council to ask them for help in finding and facing Sauron before he finds his ring. But Saruman, as their leader, dismisses Gandalf's proposal, claiming that it was a long lost and Sauron would never find it. When really Saruman feared that someone would discover that he was searching for the One Ring himself. After going back to the Shire to stay with the hobbits, his visits are cut short again, this time by the destruction of Erebor by Smaug. Then, one day while in the Prancing Pony in Bree, he finds someone he was very much looking forward to meeting, Thorin Oakenshield. Gandalf and Thorin are happy to meet each other because they both wanted to start the quest for Erebor, something they decided on in the Blue Mountains past the Shire. Then, as the Book of the Hobbits explains, Gandalf embarks on an adventure with 13 dwarves and 1 hobbit, Bilbo Baggins. Together they travel to Erebor to vanquish Smaug and regain control of the mountains. Leaving the Shire behind, Gandalf and company stay 2 weeks on Rivendell before journeying to the Misty Mountains, where the Goblin King captures the dwarves while Bilbo somehow manages to escape. He starts playing riddles in the dark with the creature Golem. In time, Gandalf arrives and gives the dwarves a chance to escape. Seeking shelter, Gandalf decides to visit the shapeshifter Beorn. Then, Gandalf leaves the company to go to the White Council to explain why he has taken upon his quest and his suspicion about Smaug and a possible alliance with Sauron. With the potential involvement of a dragon and Sauron regaining strength even without his ring, Gandalf convinces them, even Saruman, to attack Dol Guldur, banishing Sauron to Mordor, where he'll rebuild Barad-dûr 10 years later. When Gandalf returns to the company of Thorin, he finds that Smaug is dead. Erebor has been reconquered, and men, dwarves, and elves are about to go to war for the riches owed to them by the king under the mountain. Luckily, Gandalf persuades them to join forces to fight against the wargs, orcs, and goblins Sauron sent, unleashing the Battle of the 5 Armies. After this first step towards the War of the Ring, Thorin is killed by the orcs, leaving the throne to Dain, Lord of the Iron Hills and Thorin's cousin. After making peace with Bard the Dragonslayer and the people of the now rebirthed, Dale, Gandalf, and Bilbo go back to the Shire, stopping first at Rivendell to expend some deserved vacations. In the borders of the Shire, Gandalf bids farewell to his friends, but always having in mind that Bilbo did find something on the Goblin tunnels, a magical ring, although the Grey Wizard couldn't even begin to imagine the true identity of said ring, one that was starting to make the depths of Mordor boil again, with the thirst for the biggest and most important conflict of all the Third Ages, the War of the Ring, something that would change Gandalf's life forever.